Hello folks and welcome to this week's review. Now back in late September of 2023, last year, as I make this video, I reviewed the Accession moving magnet phono amplifier from the UK outfit Graham Slee, link above. And very nice it was too. In fact, for that review I awarded it a very high award-winning rating. Actually, I think it was a deeply groovy for the Accession with the upgraded power supply, and I think it was 8 out of 10 for whatever came out the box. So I gave it 2, I think. Anyway, you can check on the link. So at that time, I was very much aware that there was a moving coil variant of the Accession called, not too surprisingly, the Accession MC for moving coil.
Yeah.
Now this low output variant arrives in exactly the same chassis as the moving magnet design. More than that, all of the toggle switch options at the front are exactly the same, while on the rear, all of the socket options remain the same too, as does the dip loading switch bank on the bottom left as you look at the rear. In terms of build budget costs, production efficiency, and the final price point, all this makes perfect sense. Hence, the front of the chassis sports a rotary output control on the far left, so this unit can be used as a preamp, and unlike the test of the moving magnet version, because I didn't test the preamp option, I had time issues on that particular review, but I've done them on this one. I was determined to test the preamp version, the preamp option, in this review, so you'll see that later on. So if you just want a neat vinyl-based hi-fi system, if you want to reduce the footprint of that system, and if you want to keep the path of your hi-fi chain simple, this is a good thing. Also on the front, if we're looking at the switches, we have a stereo mono switch if you run a mono cartridge, which if you have mono recordings, or a good few of them, I would recommend, or you just want to force the stereo signal into mono. Now on the front here, you will see 3 EQ options. Firstly, there's the Commodore Garden RIAA option, which is the nearest we've come to a current recording EQ standard. This is the EQ used in all and recent, and going back decades when I say recent, vinyl recordings, and the one supported by the majority of phono amplifiers currently on sale on the market. But it wasn't always thus. Before RIAA was actually adopted as a sort of EQ standard for recording music onto vinyl discs, there were many competing standards out there. In fact, RIAA, well, it took a long time to get to the standard we know and love today. And I've even heard of some vinyl recordings that did not adopt RIAA well into the early 70s. So there's a heap of non-RIAA vinyl out there. And to cover the bases for some of those recordings, at least, Graham Slee has kind of averaged out all of those competing options to 2 choices. You have the British and the American choices on the front via the toggle switch. So this gives you some extra choice when playing your records. Now, as an aside, if you are playing an RIAA record, do not use the British option on this phono amp because it kind of gives you a slightly thinner, edgier tone. At the same time, do not use the American option either with an RIAA disc because it sounds a bit plummy, a bit bass heavy, I suppose. Saying that, if you suspect that you have a pre-RIAA, it's really tough to say that, you know. If you have a pre-RIAA recording, doesn't get any easier, from a US or UK pressing plant over the time, give those alternative EQ options a try, and you might find that your older recordings kind of make more sense in sonic terms with the British or American toggle switch selected. Whatever, the settings are worth experimenting with at the least. Now, I'm sure you will have seen the other option, and some of you will be thinking, what on earth is that? This is, of course, the CA flat option. Again, do not use this option for general listening, because it's there really if you want to digitize recordings and you can hear the effect of any bias, any EQ you may want to add on a sort of bespoke fashion on the fly, so you can hear the changes as you're doing your recording. So this is a useful recording tool, and I don't recall seeing this particular one. You can tell me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure I am, but I don't recall seeing this on a 2-channel home hi-fi phono amp, at least. The rear of the chassis offers standard inputs and outputs, plus a bank of dip switches to select one of 4 loading settings for your cartridge, either 75 ohms, 100, 300, and 500 ohms. Finally, now I'm not going to repeat Graham Slee's tech philosophy here because it's rather wordy and it's already on the website, and if I do, then this video will go on for about an hour. However, I do recommend that you check the website, and they talk about the hows and the whys of this machine, and it gives you some useful context. It also explains why the so-called RIAA EQ curve isn't really a curve at all. It's interesting stuff. Now, this unit arrives with a separate power supply out of the box, which is great because that means the noise floor is going to go down. I like separating the supply from the main component with anything, whatever it is. So a good thing. So this so-called PSU1 arrives as part of the Accession MC package, but I will also be testing the Accession MC with an upgraded power supply, the so-called PSU1 Enigma, which replaces and upgrades the default power supply for an extra £385. For the sound tests, as a reference, I used my trusty tricord Dino, also UK designed and built, upgraded to around the, well, similar price point, 1K I think in this particular case. Comes with a separate never connected power supply, plus an improved power cable. As I still have my vinyl copies of Coldplay's Viva La Vida and Keely Smith's That Old Black Magic lying around from the recent Origin Live Strata Placermat video, a link above again, I ran with those. And with that ammunition, let's zip over to the sound quality tests and see how the Accession MC performs. And welcome to the Accession MC sound quality tests. And playing the Coldplay tracks first, 2 things hit me immediately. Firstly, the noise floor from the Accession MC was way down low, much lower than I was expecting at this price point. Now, yes, I'm using the tricord Phono Amplifier here as my reference, but I've got to say, my comments are targeted just as much to the wider competition out there. The Graham Slee Accession MC pushes that noise floor all the way down. So you are triggering more detail, finer detail, a greater subtlety right across the soundstage, a more complex delivery as well. The second immediate effect here is the sheer control, especially across the upper mids and the treble. Now, with some of the best phono amplifiers out there at this price point, and sometimes with the good ones, I'm sometimes blown away by the degree of information on offer and the detail presented to the ears. But I'm slightly scared at the same time, because sometimes all of that information arrives with the phono amp sounding a bit unstable at the very edges of the upper mids, almost as if the phono amplifier is going to fall over and collapse. That is, I sometimes feel that the phono amplifier offers a kind of roller coaster ride of instability. The Accession MC, on the other hand, never does that to you, not once. Instead, while offering clarity and transparency right through the midband and the treble areas, everything within those areas sounded completely controlled. Now, I tried the Keeley Smith Vocal Jazz LP and I noted how the Accession MC bred confidence during play. So instead of listening while perched on the edge of my seat, fearing the worst, I knew I was in good hands here and I could relax, which made for a pleasant listening experience. Now, the soundstage here was pretty structured. Instruments occupied their own individual space. They never bumped elbows, which also meant you tended to hear the edges of instruments because there were like little gaps in between each instrument. So as your ear panned around, you could hear the beginning and the end of one particular instrument, a tiny gap, and then the beginning and the end of another. So you hear the whole instrument, if you get my meaning. Often, with some phono amps, the available space in front of you is too cluttered. Instruments kind of overlap, and it kind of blurs and restricts the detail in that case. Next, I swapped over the power supply and upgraded the power supply from a PSU-1 to a PSU-1 Enigma. Now, you may recall when I upgraded the PSU-1 on the Accession Moving Magnet Phono amp, if you've seen that review, and I heartily recommend it. Back then I reported how much better the Phono Amplifier sounded with that Enigma installed. Well, gotta say, the same here. The improvements included a greater confidence right across the soundstage. By that I meant bass sounded rock solid. Every thump from the drums was focused, it was precise, it was meant, it sounded final. Acoustic guitar strums reflected the force given to them, the force behind them, with instruments clearly sitting either alongside or behind other instruments. Yet, the clarity remained. Again, no blaring, no smudging. There was no sense of a diminished performance if an instrument sat deeper in the mix. You could hear it. Transparency was really good. So let's get to that preamp test, shall we? And what I did was previously I had the Accession MC plugged to my reference preamp at my main preamp, and the preamp then went to a pair of valve monoblocks, and that was the chain. So obviously with the turntable at the top. So for the preamp mode, I removed, as it were, my main preamp. So what you had was your turntable into the Accession MC, which went then straight to the monoblocks, so ignoring the preamp in the middle. So Accession MC, power amps, that's it. And I tell you what, the most impressive sonic response was the Accession MC in preamp mode. That is, you could have mistaken the sound for balanced mode. And there isn't a balanced mode on this Phono amp, but that's what it sounded like, because it was supremely balanced, supremely neutral, very smooth. There was that further reduction of noise, again, something you associate with balanced mode, that smoothness in the mids especially. Transparency was enhanced even further. And for example, at the beginning of the, I think it's Life in Technicolor, track 1 on that Coldplay album, I heard the bass guitar in the background. This is deep in the mix. It played, and then he would pause a little bit, just slightly on a couple of occasions. So he would play, slight pause, play, 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 slight pause, blah, 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 and off we went. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that initially on the earlier tests. Now, because the noise floor had gone way down, because there was much more detail, right at the back of the mix, I could hear that for the first time. Similarly, I could hear a second acoustic guitar on the left channel. Now, earlier in the sound test, I could hear, obviously, this acoustic guitar. I thought it was just in stereo mode, the same guitar on left and right speakers. No, it was two guitars, because I could suddenly hear slight differences in the strumming effect on the left channel and the right channel. So to repeat, both of these little revelations were from instruments deep in the mix, easily hidden, easily missed, not here. Oh, and by the way, vocals, super smooth, super insightful. And that, folks, is basically the review of the Graham Slee Accession MC Phono Amplifier. Let me give you a few final thoughts, and then I'll do a few pros and cons, and I'll give you a rating. Compact, arriving with a host of expected features and a few unexpected, yes, very welcome additions. The Accession MC Phono Amplifier emerges out of the box, ready to offer you a top performance as a basic phono amplifier in moving coil mode, of course, but it doesn't give its all out of the box. That is, it has hidden capacity, and that is released initially by the PSU1 Enigma upgraded power supply. And rather delightfully, when used directly with a power amplifier or power monoblocks as a preamp. In fact, in preamp mode with the associated power amplifier, you've got yourself a killer vinyl setup that will sweep many competing systems of a similar price point brutally to one side. That is, out of the box, the Accession MC is excellent. With the upgraded power supply, it's a stunner. But in preamp mode, with the right turntable setup and power amp, you've got one of the best specialist vinyl systems on the market. Pros and cons. And in the good section, well, basically this is a small integrated phono amplifier. So low footprint, doesn't take up too much space. Secondly, basic upgradability. You can upgrade the power supply and you can upgrade still further to a preamp setting. Basic sound quality, whether you're talking out of the box or you add the upgraded power supply or you go for the preamp mode, sound quality in any of those modes is top notch. Also, well, that preamp mode, that was the real surprise of this particular review. I didn't expect the hike in sound quality that I heard. It was quite an improvement over and above what was already excellent. That means, well, I'm going to be all complicated again. I'm going to give you three. I'm going to give you three reviews. Out of the box, I'm looking at an award-winning rating of 8 out of 10 and a groovy. If you add the upgraded power supply, that goes up to 9, folks, and a deeply groovy. The lower areas of 9, shall we say. But if you go for the preamp mode, again, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10, another deeply groovy, but let's say the upper reaches of 9. So yeah, an 8 and 2 9s, how about that? I suddenly feel like a gymnastics judge at the Olympics with all of these ratings. Anyway, congratulations to Graham Slee. And that's it, folks. Thanks for staying to the end of this video. And can I ask you, just down there, before you go, hang on, just down there, if you could click on the like and subscribe buttons, please, it would just help this channel to grow just a little bit further, which I think is a nice thing. Also, down below, I'll put a link to Graham Slee so you can check everything out a little bit more. You can buy off the website, the Graham Slee website. So they have their own little shop. So yeah, it's all down there. You can buy the phono amp and you can buy the upgraded power supply as well. There's other links, social media links, and there's my website and my Facebook group and also my Patreon page. I'll be back on Friday with music alerts, and I'll be back next Sunday with another review. Hope to see you there. Until then, folks, bye-bye for now.